The first thing I learned about people who think rules only apply to everyone else is that they usually leave the best evidence behind. At 6:15 on a Monday morning, Ryan Caldwell unlocked the front door of Caldwell Auto Works, flipped on the overhead shop lights, and stopped so suddenly that the keys in his hand went quiet. Sitting right in the center of his private work bay, under the bright white lights and between two taped service lanes, was a silver Mercedes sedan that absolutely did not belong there. It was polished, expensive, and parked at a perfect angle, as if whoever left it there believed the entire building had been waiting for her arrival. Ryan stood in the doorway for a few seconds, not angry yet, just carefully silent. His shop was not a public garage. It was not overflow parking for Brookhaven Pines. It was a licensed auto detailing and restoration business with cameras on every corner, a locked garage door, a posted fee schedule, and a sign at the entrance that clearly read private business property, authorized vehicles only. Still, there it was, a Mercedes in the middle of his workspace, blocking a scheduled pickup, a detailing bay, and the rolling cabinet he needed before 8 o'clock. Then Ryan saw the small blue and white parking card on the dashboard. Brookhaven Pines Homeowners Association. Visitor and board access permit. He almost laughed, but he did not. He already knew whose car it was. Marjorie Whitaker, the Homeowners Association president, drove that Mercedes like it came with a title higher than everyone else's deed. She had complained about his shop before, not because it was dirty or loud or illegal, but because it sat near the back edge of the community and reminded her that not every piece of land beside Brookhaven Pines answered to her clipboard. Ryan walked around the car without touching it. He checked the front bumper, the passenger side, the driver's side, and the rear panel. No damage. No keys visible. No note. No work order. No intake form. No permission. On the wall near the office door, the printed shop policy was exactly where it had always been. Unauthorized indoor vehicle storage will be billed hourly after entry. Ryan looked from the policy to the Mercedes, then up at the security camera blinking red in the corner. Whoever had brought the car inside had done it under full recording. He set his coffee on the desk, opened his laptop, and pulled up the overnight camera feed. The screen showed the garage door open briefly the evening before for a parts delivery. Then, less than a minute later, Marjorie's Mercedes rolled in like it owned the floor. Ryan watched her step out, glance directly at the private property sign, adjust her jacket, and walk away toward the clubhouse path. He paused the video on that frame. Her face, the sign, the car, and the shop interior were all visible at once. Ryan leaned back in his chair, checked the time, and opened a new invoice file. He did not call a tow truck. He did not touch the Mercedes. He did not chase Marjorie across the neighborhood. He simply typed the license plate, entered the time of entry, selected unauthorized indoor storage, and let the first billable hour begin. Caldwell Auto Works had never been the kind of place someone wandered into by accident. It sat on a narrow commercial lot just outside the back entrance of Brookhaven Pines, about half a mile from the clubhouse and 2 miles from the main highway, with a gravel side drive, a roll-up garage door, and a painted sign that Ryan Caldwell had installed himself the week he opened. The building was not fancy, but it was clean, organized, and honest. Inside, every tool had a place. Polishing pads hung in labeled rows. Microfiber towels were stacked by color. Work orders sat in clear sleeves near the office window. A whiteboard listed appointments by hour, because Ryan did not believe in guessing when someone trusted him with a vehicle. He had built the business slowly over 7 years, starting with weekend detailing jobs in a rented bay, then moving into paint correction, interior restoration, and careful work on older American cars that other shops rushed through. By the time he bought the Brookhaven lot, he had a reputation for being calm, precise, and almost annoyingly consistent. Customers liked that. Insurance adjusters liked that. Classic car owners loved that. Ryan's rules were simple because simple rules prevented expensive problems. No vehicle came inside without an intake form. No keys were left unsecured. No customer entered a service bay without permission. Every car was photographed at arrival, documented at pickup, and covered by a policy that depended on controlled access. That was why the signs were posted in plain English at the driveway, the office door, and inside the bay. Private business property. Authorized vehicles only. Unauthorized indoor vehicle storage billed hourly after entry. Ryan had added the last line 3 years earlier after a delivery driver used his bay as a shortcut during a rainstorm and left a van blocking a customer car for half a day. Since then, the sign had solved every problem before it started. At least it had until Marjorie Whittaker decided signs were for other people. Her problem with Caldwell Auto Works began long before the Mercedes appeared under his lights. She first visited the shop during Ryan's second month on the property, wearing cream-colored slacks, a pearl necklace, and the expression of someone inspecting a stain on a white carpet. She introduced herself as the president of the Brookhaven Pines Homeowners Association, even though Ryan had not asked. Then she explained that his building was visible from the community walking path and therefore affected the character of the neighborhood. Ryan listened politely, then showed her his business license, county zoning approval, and the recorded boundary lines separating his lot from the residential association. Marjorie barely glanced at the papers. She said legal permission and community harmony were not always the same thing. Ryan remembered that sentence because it told him exactly who she was. She did not need ownership to feel entitled. She only needed proximity. Over the next year, she sent complaints about delivery trucks, exterior lights, customer parking, and one old pickup that Ryan had parked outside for less than 40 minutes while waiting for a tow. Each time, Ryan answered with documentation. Each time, Marjorie acted as if paperwork was a temporary inconvenience on the way to obedience. So when he sat at his desk that Monday morning, watching security footage of her looking directly at his posted policy before walking away from her Mercedes, Ryan did not see a misunderstanding. He saw the first time Marjorie Whittaker had finally put her entitlement in writing, on camera, and inside his locked business. The event that gave Marjorie Whittaker her excuse happened on a warm Sunday afternoon in late May, when the Brookhaven Pines Homeowners Association hosted a fundraising luncheon at the clubhouse for what Marjorie called neighborhood beautification improvements. Ryan Caldwell had heard about it only because 3 customers mentioned the traffic when they dropped off their cars that week. He had no problem with the event. The clubhouse was half a mile away, the weather was clear, and his shop was closed to walk-ins on Sundays unless a scheduled customer needed pickup. By noon, however, the back entrance road was lined with vehicles, and the small clubhouse lot had filled past the last marked space. Ryan noticed the crowd only when he stepped outside to meet a parts courier and saw 2 sedans idling near his driveway, their drivers looking toward his empty gravel apron as if it were public overflow parking. He walked to the entrance and pointed to the private business sign before anyone pulled in. Most people understood immediately and moved along. Marjorie did not. She arrived 10 minutes later in the silver Mercedes, sunglasses on, phone in hand, an expression already sharpened by inconvenience. She rolled down her window just far enough to speak without fully acknowledging him. "Mr. Caldwell, we have guests walking from the far side of the community because your lot is sitting empty." Ryan kept his tone even and told her the lot was not part of Brookhaven Pines parking, and the shop had scheduled vehicles arriving later that afternoon. Marjorie looked past him at the garage door, the side drive, and the clean open space in front of the bay. "It affects the community," she said. "Everything near this community affects this community." Ryan had heard that logic before. It was the same sentence in a new outfit. He explained again that Caldwell Auto Works was private commercial property, separately zoned, separately insured, and not available for association event parking. Marjorie smiled like he had said something childish. "You know, cooperation goes a long way with boards like ours." Ryan did not take the bait. He simply said, "So does respecting property lines." For a moment, the only sound was distant music from the clubhouse patio and tires rolling slowly over the road behind her. Then Marjorie lifted her window, turned the Mercedes around, and drove off without another word. Ryan watched her leave, but he knew better than to believe the conversation was over. That evening, after the fundraiser ended, he returned to the shop to receive a delayed parts delivery. The courier backed up to the roll-up door around 6:40, and Ryan opened the bay for less than 5 minutes while they unloaded 2 boxes of trim pieces and a crate of upholstery supplies. He signed the delivery slip, carried the boxes inside, and stepped into the office to scan the receipt. On the camera feed, those 5 minutes told the real story. At 6:44, Marjorie's Mercedes turned off the road with its headlights already on. It paused at the driveway, then rolled past the private property sign and into the open garage while Ryan was still inside the office with the courier receipt. The car stopped neatly in the center of the work bay. Marjorie stepped out, glanced once toward the posted storage policy on the interior wall, adjusted her handbag, and walked back toward the clubhouse path, as if she had just solved her parking problem with executive authority. She left no note. She did not speak to Ryan. She did not ask permission. She simply placed her private car inside a locked business and trusted that her title would make the rules rearrange themselves around her. What made Marjorie Whitaker's decision even more careless was that Ryan Caldwell did not see the Mercedes in person that evening. His office was separated from the main bay by a solid fire door, a small glass window, and a row of storage shelves stacked with boxed trim pieces from the delivery. After the courier left, Ryan stayed at his desk for nearly 20 minutes scanning receipts, updating customer files, and answering a message from a client who was scheduled for pickup the next morning. The roll-up garage door was already closing on its timer when Marjorie slipped the car inside, and by the time Ryan stepped out through the side office door, the bay lights had switched to low after-hours mode. The security panel showed the exterior door secured, the garage door closed, and no open access points. That was all his insurance procedure required before arming the building. He had no reason to expect that the president of the Homeowners Association had used a delivery opening like a private parking reservation. So he locked up, drove home, and did not learn what she had done until the cameras told him the truth at 6:15 the next morning. Once Ryan understood the timeline, he moved carefully. He knew that the worst thing he could do was let Marjorie turn his response into the story. If he touched the car, she would claim damage. If he moved it, she would claim improper handling. If he called a tow truck without documenting the entry, she would claim confusion. So Ryan did what he did with every vehicle in his shop, even one that had no permission to be there. He photographed all four sides: the wheels, the roof, the interior through the windows, the dashboard permit, the license plate, and the exact position of the Mercedes between the service lanes. He printed still images from the camera feed showing the car entering at 6:44 on Sunday evening and showing Marjorie walking past the posted policy. Then he checked his posted fee schedule and opened the invoice file he had started that morning. The rate was not invented for her. It was written on the wall, listed in his customer terms, and included in the shop policy he had filed with his insurer after the delivery van incident years earlier. Unauthorized indoor vehicle storage was billed hourly after entry, with an after-hours administrative fee if the vehicle blocked scheduled business operations. By 8 o'clock, the Mercedes had already delayed a customer pickup. A man named Travis Bell arrived to collect a restored 1972 Chevrolet Chevelle, only to find the bay lane blocked. Ryan apologized, showed him just enough of the situation to explain the delay, and offered a discount on the final detail. Travis looked at the Mercedes, looked at the Homeowners Association permit on the dashboard, and said, "That looks like Marjorie's car." Ryan only nodded. He was not interested in gossip. He was interested in records. At 8:17, he sent Marjorie a short email with the subject "Unauthorized vehicle stored inside private business property." He stated that her Mercedes had entered Caldwell Auto Works without permission, that the vehicle was secured inside the building under normal insurance procedure, that hourly storage charges had begun according to posted policy, and that release would require identity confirmation, payment of accrued fees, and written acknowledgement that the vehicle had not been accepted for service. He attached photographs, the entry timestamp, and the posted policy. Then he hit send, leaned back in his chair, and watched the invoice timer continue doing what Marjorie had refused to do: respect the rules. Marjorie Whitaker did not call immediately, which told Ryan Caldwell two things. First, she had received the email. Second, she was deciding whether to answer like a person who had made a mistake or like a president who believed admitting a mistake was beneath her. At 8:39, his office phone rang. Ryan let it ring twice, clicked record on his call log system, and answered with the same calm voice he used for customers. "Caldwell Auto Works, this is Ryan." Marjorie did not bother with a greeting. "Open your garage right now," she said. "I have a meeting at 10 o'clock and I need my car." Ryan looked through the office window at the silver Mercedes sitting motionless under the shop lights. "Your vehicle is secured inside my building after entering without authorization," he said. "I sent you the release requirements by email." There was a pause, the kind of pause people take when they expected anger and received a policy instead. I did not enter without authorization, she said. Your garage door was open. Ryan clicked open the video still on his monitor and kept his voice level. An open garage door during a delivery is not permission to store a private vehicle inside a closed business. You walked past 3 posted signs. You left no note, no keys, and no service request. That is unauthorized indoor storage. Marjorie gave a short laugh that carried no humor at all. Do you have any idea who you are speaking to? I am the president of the Brookhaven Pines Homeowners Association. Ryan leaned back in his chair. That title does not unlock my shop. The line went quiet. Then Marjorie's voice dropped into the tone she used at meetings when she wanted people to feel small. You are making a very serious mistake, Mr. Caldwell. Your business operates directly beside our community. The board has been patient with your impact on our residents, but patience has limits. Ryan looked at the invoice timer. The charge had moved into another hour. My property line also has limits, he said. Your car crossed one. If you want the Mercedes released, please follow the instructions in the email. Marjorie said she would not pay a ridiculous storage bill for a car she had parked safely and temporarily. Ryan corrected her gently. You did not park it safely. You placed it inside an active work bay without permission and blocked scheduled business operations. That means there is a storage charge and an administrative charge. The longer this takes, the higher the total becomes. She accused him of holding the vehicle hostage. Ryan told her the vehicle was available for release under posted terms. Once she came in person, confirmed ownership, paid the accrued charges, and signed the acknowledgement. He also reminded her that he had not touched, moved, damaged, or serviced the car. That made her even more frustrated, because there was no dramatic behavior to point at. Just rules. At 9:12, she sent an email to the entire Homeowners Association board claiming Ryan was abusing a misunderstanding to embarrass the community. At 9:18, Ryan replied only to Marjorie and copied his business attorney, attaching the video frame of her looking directly at the posted policy before walking away. At 9:31, one board member named Helen Price wrote back asking whether the association had authorized Marjorie to use private business property for event parking. Nobody answered that question. By 10 o'clock, Marjorie's meeting had started without her Mercedes. Ryan's customer schedule had been rearranged, and the invoice kept growing by the hour. The strangest part was not that Marjorie had made a bad choice. It was that every chance Ryan gave her to end it made her more determined to prove she had never been wrong in the first place. By late Monday morning, Marjorie Whitaker had stopped treating the Mercedes like a car and started treating it like a test of authority. Ryan Caldwell could see it in every message she sent. None of them asked how to resolve the issue. None of them accepted the posted policy. Every line tried to move the argument away from what had happened inside Caldwell Auto Works and back toward who she believed she was in Brookhaven Pines. At 10:27, she sent another email to the board, this time with the management company copied. She claimed Ryan was creating a hostile relationship with the community, obstructing a volunteer leader, and attempting to profit from a simple parking accommodation during an association event. Ryan read the message twice, then saved it without answering right away. He had learned that people like Marjorie often built their own record if you gave them enough room to type. At 10:42, Helen Price replied again, asking whether any written agreement existed between the Homeowners Association and Caldwell Auto Works for parking, storage, or access. Still, no one produced one. At 11:05, Ryan updated the invoice with the delayed pickup discount he had given Travis Bell, the after-hours administrative charge, and the continuing hourly storage line. He included a note that the vehicle remained inside a locked, insured work bay because the owner had not completed release requirements. Then he sent Marjorie an updated copy. Less than 4 minutes later, his cell phone rang from a blocked number. He let it go to voicemail. The message came through immediately. Marjorie's voice was tight and formal, clearly meant to sound controlled, but the strain underneath it was obvious. She said she was giving him one final opportunity to release her vehicle before she pursued association remedies, community complaints, and potential legal action. Ryan forwarded the voicemail to his attorney and returned to work. That response bothered Marjorie more than any argument would have. Around noon, she appeared at the front office door in person, standing beneath the private business property sign with her sunglasses still on and a leather folder pressed to her side. Ryan unlocked only the customer entrance, not the service bay, and met her at the counter. Behind him, through the office window, the Mercedes sat exactly where she had left it. Marjorie looked past him and said, "I can see my car. Open the bay." Ryan placed the printed invoice, release acknowledgement, and photo packet on the counter. "Once the balance is paid and the acknowledgement is signed, I will release it through the normal exit procedure." Her eyes moved to the total, and her expression changed. "This is outrageous," she said. Ryan nodded toward the wall where the same policy was posted beside the business license. "It is the posted rate. Your vehicle entered at 6:44 Sunday evening. You contacted me after I notified you this morning. The time is documented." Marjorie tapped the papers with one finger. "I did not authorize these charges." Ryan answered evenly. "You authorized the situation when you placed the car inside my shop without permission and left it there overnight." She stepped closer to the counter and lowered her voice, as if privacy would make her more powerful. "You are going to regret humiliating me." Ryan did not move. "I am not humiliating you, Marjorie. I am billing you. There is a difference." For a moment, she had no polished reply. Then she gathered the papers, refused to sign, and walked out with the invoice still unpaid. Ryan watched through the window as she crossed the gravel toward the clubhouse path, leaving the Mercedes behind again. At 12:16, he updated the invoice timer. Because the car was still inside his shop, the policy was still posted, and Marjorie had just chosen another billable hour over admitting she had no right to be there. By Monday afternoon, the situation had become less about getting the Mercedes out of Caldwell Auto Works and more about Marjorie Whitaker trying to make the entire neighborhood believe she was the injured party. At 1:03, she sent a community message through the Brookhaven Pines resident portal, carefully avoiding the words unauthorized entry, private business, and posted storage fee. Instead, she wrote that a local business owner was refusing to cooperate with community leadership after a parking misunderstanding during a charitable event. She mentioned disruption, poor neighbor relations, and the need to protect residents from unfair treatment by outside businesses. Ryan Caldwell read the message from his office desk while the Mercedes sat behind him under the shop lights, still blocking the lane where a blue Ford Mustang was supposed to arrive for paint correction at 2 o'clock. He did not answer the community post. He opened a folder on his desktop and added the screenshot to the file marked Whitaker Mercedes. Then he called the Mustang customer, explained that a vehicle had been left inside the bay without authorization, and rescheduled the appointment with a courtesy discount. That discount went into the invoice too, because Marjorie's decision was no longer just taking space. It was costing the business time, schedule changes, and customer goodwill. At 2:18, Helen Price called Ryan directly. She was polite, careful, and clearly uncomfortable. She said she was speaking only for herself as a homeowners association board member, not officially for the board. Ryan appreciated the distinction. Helen asked one question. "Did Marjorie have permission to put her car inside your shop?" Ryan said no. Helen asked whether there was video. Ryan said yes. Helen was quiet for a moment, then said, "I thought so." She told him Marjorie had requested an emergency board discussion that evening at the clubhouse, claiming Ryan was using his business to retaliate against the association. Ryan almost smiled at the word retaliate. He had not raised his voice, moved her car, touched her car, or stepped onto association property. The only thing he had done was bill according to a policy Marjorie had walked past before leaving her vehicle overnight. Helen then asked whether Ryan would be willing to attend the meeting and explain the facts. Ryan looked through the office window at the Mercedes and then at the invoice timer on his screen. "I will attend," he said, "but I will bring records, not opinions." At 3 o'clock, he printed everything in order. The zoning approval for Caldwell Auto Works, the property boundary map, photographs of the posted signs, the camera stills showing the Mercedes entering the bay, the frame where Marjorie looked directly at the indoor storage policy, the first email notification, her replies, the board emails, the voicemail transcript, the updated invoice. He also exported the video clip to a flash drive and a laptop because he knew Marjorie would not stop unless people saw the moment for themselves. At 5:30, the invoice passed another hourly mark. Ryan saved the updated total and locked the front office for the day, leaving the Mercedes secured exactly where it had been since Sunday evening. The clubhouse parking lot was already filling when he arrived 15 minutes later, but this time he noticed something different. People were not looking at him like a difficult shop owner. They were looking at Marjorie like someone whose version of the story had arrived before the evidence, and now everyone was waiting to see whether it could survive the truth. The clubhouse meeting began with Marjorie Whittaker standing at the front of the room as if she had already won the argument by choosing the location. The folding chairs were full, the side wall was lined with residents who had come after reading her message, and the long table near the bulletin board held a pitcher of water, a stack of association forms, and Marjorie's leather folder placed neatly in front of her. Ryan Caldwell sat near the back with his laptop bag at his feet and a printed file on his lap, quiet enough that several people turned around just to confirm he was actually there. Marjorie opened the meeting by saying the community had been placed in an unfortunate position by a business owner who refused to cooperate during a charitable neighborhood event. She spoke smoothly, carefully, and without once explaining how her Mercedes ended up inside his locked shop. She said Caldwell Auto Works had benefited from Brookhaven Pines traffic, Brookhaven Pines visibility, and Brookhaven Pines goodwill, and that Ryan had chosen to respond to a simple parking matter with excessive fees and unnecessary hostility. Ryan listened without interrupting. Helen Price watched him from the board table, her face tense but steady. When Marjorie finished, she asked whether Ryan would be willing to release the vehicle immediately and waive all charges in the interest of community harmony. That was when Ryan stood. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse her of anything dramatic. He carried his laptop to the front table, opened the printed folder, and said, "I am happy to explain the facts in order." The room shifted. Marjorie's smile thinned. Ryan placed the first document on the table, his county zoning approval showing Caldwell Auto Works was separate commercial property. Then he placed the boundary map beside it, followed by photographs of the posted signs at the driveway, the office door, and the interior wall. He pointed to the policy language and read it exactly as written. Unauthorized indoor vehicle storage will be billed hourly after entry. Someone in the second row murmured that the sign looked pretty clear. Marjorie said signs did not override reasonable community cooperation. Ryan nodded once and connected his laptop to the clubhouse screen. Then the camera footage appeared. The room watched the delivery truck leave, the garage door still open, and Marjorie's silver Mercedes turn into the driveway at 6:44 on Sunday evening. There was no confusion in the video. No attendant waved her in. No employee opened the bay for her. The Mercedes rolled inside, stopped between the service lanes, and then Marjorie stepped out. Ryan paused the video at the exact moment she looked toward the interior wall where the storage policy was posted. Her face, the sign, the Mercedes, and the work bay were all in the same frame. The room went still in a way that felt heavier than noise. Ryan continued, "Your vehicle remained inside my secured business overnight. It blocked scheduled work, delayed a customer pickup, and required documentation under my insurance procedure. I did not touch it, move it, damage it, or refuse. Release under posted terms. I sent release instructions at 8:17 this morning." Marjorie stood quickly and said the footage lacked context. Ryan clicked to the next file, showing her email to the board, the voicemail transcript, the updated invoice, and Helen Price's unanswered question about whether the association had authorized private business parking. One board member looked down at the table. Another leaned back and exhaled slowly. Helen finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "Marjorie, did the board give you permission to park inside Mr. Caldwell's shop?" For the first time all evening, Marjorie had no polished answer ready. Marjorie Whittaker looked from Helen Price to the frozen video frame on the clubhouse screen, and for a moment the room saw something it had almost never seen from her: hesitation. She adjusted the edge of her blazer, glanced at the residents seated in front of her, and said the situation had moved quickly during a busy community event. Ryan Caldwell did not respond to the excuse. He simply moved to the next document in his folder and placed the invoice on the table where the board could see the timeline. Entry at 6:44 Sunday evening. Overnight secured storage. Delayed customer pickup at 8 o'clock Monday morning. First written notice at 8:17. Phone call at 8:39. In-person refusal to sign release paperwork at 12:16. Continued storage through the evening meeting. Every charge was tied to a time. Every time was tied to a record, and every record pointed back to the same decision Marjorie had made when she drove past his signs. One resident near the aisle asked why the Mercedes had not simply been moved out during the day. Ryan answered carefully. Because I had no signed intake form, no keys surrendered through my process, no service authorization, and no written release from the owner. Moving an unauthorized vehicle inside my insured work bay creates risk for my business. The posted release procedure exists to protect both sides. That explanation changed the room. What had sounded in Marjorie's message like stubbornness now sounded like discipline. Helen Price turned to the management company representative, a tired-looking man named Greg Lawson, and asked whether the association had any written right to use Caldwell Auto Works for parking during events. Greg shook his head. Not that I am aware of. Another board member asked whether Marjorie had represented herself as acting on behalf of the board when she contacted Ryan. Ryan opened the email thread and read only the relevant line, where Marjorie had written that the board had been patient with his impact on residents. The room shifted again. Marjorie quickly said that was not meant as a formal board action. Helen replied that residents had received a community message suggesting this was a dispute between the association and a local business, when the evidence showed it began with Marjorie placing her personal vehicle inside private property without permission. That sentence landed harder than any accusation Ryan could have made. Marjorie tried one final angle, saying the amount of the invoice was punitive and unreasonable. Ryan turned the printed policy toward the board and explained that the rate had existed for 3 years, applied to any unauthorized indoor storage, and had not been created for her. He also showed the discount he had given Travis Bell because his customer pickup was delayed. That cost had not been theoretical. It had already affected a real appointment. By then, the invoice was no longer just a bill. It was a clock showing how long Marjorie had chosen pride over a simple correction. Helen asked Ryan what he needed to release the vehicle that night. Ryan answered without emotion. Payment of the current balance, a signed acknowledgement that the vehicle entered without permission and was not accepted for service, and confirmation that no one from the homeowners association will use my property for parking again. The board went into a short private discussion in the small office behind the meeting room. When they returned, Helen announced that the association would not support Marjorie's claim, would not reimburse the storage fees, and would issue a notice clarifying that board members had no authority over private commercial property outside the association boundary. Marjorie's face tightened, but she had run out of rooms, where her title still sounded bigger than the facts. At 7:48 that evening, she signed the acknowledgement at Ryan's front counter, paid the balance with a card she placed down without looking at him, and stood silently while he opened the service bay. The Mercedes rolled out exactly as it had arrived, spotless, untouched, and more expensive by the hour than Marjorie had ever imagined. After Marjorie Whitaker drove away from Caldwell Auto Works that night, Ryan Caldwell stayed behind for another hour, not because he needed to enjoy the silence, but because he needed to close the record properly. He saved the signed acknowledgement, attached the payment receipt to the invoice, exported the final camera clip showing the Mercedes leaving the bay without damage, and emailed a complete release summary to Marjorie, Helen Price, the management company, and his attorney. The message was short, factual, and impossible to twist. The vehicle had entered without authorization, remained secured under posted shop policy, accrued hourly storage and administrative fees, and was released after payment and signed acknowledgement. Ryan did not add a single personal comment. He did not need one. By Tuesday morning, Brookhaven Pines was talking about the Mercedes in the way neighborhoods talk when the official version of a story collapses and everyone suddenly remembers details they had been afraid to mention before. Residents compared old emails from Marjorie, old warnings about trash bins, old complaints about small decorations, and old moments when she had acted as if being homeowners association president meant every driveway, sidewalk, and business nearby belonged to her authority. Helen Price sent a community notice that afternoon, written in careful professional language, stating that no board member had permission to use private commercial property for parking, storage, access, or event overflow, and that the association would review all communication procedures involving businesses outside the association boundary. It did not name Marjorie directly, but it did not have to. Everyone knew whose silver Mercedes had started the review. At the next board meeting, Marjorie tried to sit in her usual chair at the center of the table, but the room felt different around her. People who once looked down when she spoke now looked straight at her. Greg Lawson from the management company recommended that any future contact with Caldwell Auto Works go through written channels only. Helen requested a formal vote limiting the president's individual authority during community events. The motion passed with only one objection, and that objection belonged to Marjorie. 2 weeks later, she resigned as president, explaining in a brief message that she wanted to focus on personal matters and give the board room to move forward. Ryan read the message at his shop desk, then closed it without smiling. He had never wanted a neighborhood trophy. He wanted his business left alone. Life at Caldwell Auto Works returned to its normal rhythm. Customers arrived by appointment. The roll-up door opened for real work, and the posted signs stayed exactly where they had always been. The only change was a new line Ryan added beneath the indoor storage policy, printed in clean black lettering. Open doors are not open invitations. Some customers laughed when they saw it. Ryan usually just shrugged and said every rule on that wall had earned its place. One Friday evening, Helen stopped by to drop off a written apology from the board, not from Marjorie personally, but from the association as an organization. Ryan accepted it, thanked her, and placed it in the same folder as everything else. Outside, the clubhouse lights glowed in the distance, and the road between the community and his shop looked peaceful again. Ryan looked across the bay, at the empty space where the Mercedes had sat, and thought about how simple the whole thing could have been if Marjorie had respected one sign. She thought her title could turn private property into convenient parking. All Ryan did was let the clock explain the price of that mistake.